Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at NECA's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Premonition of PRE-MUTATION 4-pack. This is, I think, something a lot of people were very interested in. They liked the non-mutated versions of at least Bebop and Rocksteady and Splinter. I don't know how many people care about Baxter Stockman. You guys can let me know in the comment section below if you do. But either way, it's a 4-pack with some pretty cool figures. Again, it's in the cartoon line, so you kind of know what you're going to get here in terms of quality and everything. But we're going to go over it anyway. We're going to try to do it as fast as possible since there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So let's go ahead and get them off the stand and take a closer look. Okay, so we're just going to do the heights all at once like this. For Bebop, we're not going to count the mohawk because that wouldn't be good for scaling. He's just about 6 inches to the top of his head. For Stockman, we're going to go, let's say 4 3/8. For Splinter, we're going to say 5 1/4. And then for Rocksteady, it's close to... well, about the same as Splinter, I suppose. They're just about the same, not counting the hair. And then you guys can do your own conversions if you want the metric. Now, these guys do have a very nice aesthetic as usual. We're going to go through the aesthetic, then the accessories, and then the articulation. These cartoon figures definitely lean on the aesthetic and the accessories. Articulation's usually pretty limited. I'm going to do each figure, and then I'll give an overall rating for the 4-pack. Because I don't think most people are going to be parting this out, and it would take forever to do that, but I'll still go through each figure so you can decide for yourself what you like. Now we're just going to set these guys aside and do one at a time, and then I'll give you the rating. Okay, so for the aesthetic for Bebop, alright, we have our camera in the right spot now. It looks really good. The red and white against the black, like character design wise, it's just traditional, basic, simple colors, and it's executed very well. But the thing that really stands out is the zippers, or are the zippers. They did a nice job sculpting and painting those. The black line work all the way around looks good. The head sculpt is good. The colors are nice. No issues there. We do have the two-tone coloring on the white and the red. You have the white and gray and then the red and the slightly different red. I don't see any on the skin or on the black or on the purple. So it is relatively basic, but sculpt-wise and paint-wise, this thing does look really good. So that's nice. Let's move on to Stockman. Let's see how he looks. He's mostly white, and it's pretty clean. There's no noticeable problem with the white being dirty or scuffed or anything like that. The black line works pretty good. There's a little bit of scuffing going on right here. I don't know if it's even going to show up just next to the lapel, but it's not too bad. And then we do have the blue on the back to give us the shading. Lots of nice, clean, heavy black lines. No two-tone anywhere else as far as I can tell. The tie is done nicely. The shoes are done nicely. The face is done pretty well too. I like that. The glasses are a nice touch. Looks pretty good. Overall, I don't really see anything that stands out as a problem. Again, we only have the shading on the blue and white, or the white with the blue, I guess I should say. But I think that's good enough. I think that's fine. Alright, let's move on to Splinter. And this one does look pretty good. They did a really nice job with these little insignias right there, or symbols, whatever you want to call it. Black line work is okay. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Down here on the pants, there are a decent amount of inconsistencies, and you can rotate the parts around to get them to line up a little bit better, but also not really. So it's somewhat limited there. I think the face is done pretty well. The sculpt and paint are clean. The white line on the hair looks just the way it should. I think that looks pretty good. As for the two-tone, it's nowhere near as noticeable, but you do get that on this maroon burgundy color. More of a maroon, I guess. But that's it. So again, it's a little bit limited in the two-tone shading, the more cell-style shading. So that's a little bit unfortunate, I think, in terms of the aesthetic. I don't think it's a huge deal because they do only do the coloring on the backs of things, and you don't normally see that as much, so I'm not all that concerned with it. It is there. It is just less than we have seen in the past. Alright, now let's look at Rocksteady, maybe the most detailed out of the bunch. Mine has two prime issues. One is his stomach has like a problem area. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell. There's a fingerprint in the paint, so that's not good. It's all scuffed up right there where the fingerprint is. And then his one eye was misplaced. The outline for the eye is in the right spot, but the eye itself, the white and then the pupil, wrong spot. So that doesn't look good. However, the rest of it does look really good, and that's probably not going to be a universal issue. Doing the black line work around the hair stands out nicely. The colors are nice and clean. The brown's good. The camo's good enough. I think that's all fine. We get the two-tone for the vest and the pants, and the boots. So that's pretty good. Other than the flaws with mine, which you probably won't have to deal with, it looks good. And I think the sculpt work is on point. Actually, I think the sculpt work is on point for all of them. It captures the likenesses very, very nicely. Aesthetically, it's a really good set, as expected. Mine does have a few flaws. I shouldn't expect that to be a thing for everyone else. It's not like the eyes are all going to be out of place like that. I've never seen that before on the turtle figure, or the cartoon turtles, so hopefully that's not a thing. I'll go 8 out of 10 for the aesthetic. I do think we could have a little bit more of the two-tone thing going on, and we do have a few issues here and there with like the line work on Splinter, and I can't not count the big fingerprint on the belly. I know that's not a universal issue, but it is mine. It's only fair to include it in the review. So aesthetically speaking, they're good, but they could be better. Now for accessories, they each have their own set of hands, and it's a decent spread of hands. You should be able to pose them however you really want to. That should be fine. For Rocksteady, we get 2 spray cans, a stereo, a stick, and then a chain. Not sure, I guess he's just supposed to hold the chain like it's an actual chain, like a weapon. So that's fine. For Bebop, we get a stick, a bat, and a pry bar. And then for Splinter, we have, I guess he only really has the 2 accessories, one being the fishbowl and the other being the tiny turtles, which are nicely done, surprisingly for the size. But that's really it, and of course they don't have to be in the bowl if you don't want them to be. And then for Stockman, we get his bug catcher net, we get his thing that looks kind of like a microphone. I don't know what that is. We get this thing that looks like some kind of other device. And we get a little jar with holes in it with the 4 turtles that are tiny. They're painted surprisingly well, sculpted even better for the scale, but they didn't do any coloring for the bandanas, and maybe they didn't have them on in this scene. I don't know, so maybe it's accurate, maybe it's not. I can't remember the cartoon that well. But that's a cool little accessory. The turtles are all one big chunk of plastic though, so you can't take them out and have 4 separate turtles. Just be aware of that. And then lastly, we do have the Mouser, which is painted pretty well. We have the two-tone, the red line, the black detail work. That's pretty good. The head is articulated, the jaw is articulated, the hips, knees, and ankles are all articulated. It's a very nice accessory. So that's a good batch of accessories. I'm going to say 10 out of 10. I don't know that they could have really done much more in the way of useful accessories other than alternate heads also, but I don't know that that's reasonable given all the other stuff we got. So I guess you could knock it down to like 9.5 if you wanted to because of the lack of alternate heads. Okay, let's do the articulation. It's fairly basic as you might expect for these cartoon figures. Some ball pegs going on in the head, and the head moves around nicely. You won't have any trouble posing the head, so that's okay. Shoulder is a swivel hinge. You get the hinge, it goes up to horizontal, no problem. A little bit of force involved, but it'll move more freely as you mess with it a little more. You get your rotation, double jointed elbow, but they swivel at the top and the bottom, so it's that weird extended elbow, which is usually not ideal, but for a figure like this, it should be fine. I can't get my second elbow to bend. So you get 90 degrees out of each bend, but I can't get that to go, so let's try this one. There we go. So if you want more than 90, you can do it, but you're going to have that weird elbow joint, which isn't a huge deal on a baggy clothing type situation, so that's okay. Then the wrists have a swivel and a hinge. There's at least a single ball peg in here, maybe it's 2, to let him move around. So obviously you can do that. He's not going to be doing a ton because the coat's not going to flex really, but you can rotate and lean a little bit. It's pretty loose though. The hips are on ball pegs, and they move around nicely. They're not super loose, so that's okay. You get decent range out of that. Again, you're not going to be doing a ton with this guy, but it's okay. Thigh swivel is fine. Double jointed knee. It works like a standard double jointed knee, but of course his lab coat's in the way. So you're not going to be doing a ton, again, but it does work. So if you want that, you have it. And then for the ankles, I think they're ball hinges, but I can't get them to rotate in the pants at all, so I can't say for sure. But you do get the hinge that goes pretty far forward and pretty far back, and you get your ankle rocker out of that. And I just cannot get it to rotate. These are fresh out of the package. If you hit it with a hairdryer, there's a good chance these ankles rotate. They are, I just pulled away so I could look at it. They are separate pieces from the pants. I can't get them to rotate though, so there's a good chance they will with a hairdryer, but I can't say for sure. So his articulation is definitely acceptable for a guy in a lab coat. You should be able to pose him just fine. Now let's look at Splinter. His head also moves around really nicely on the ball pegs. Can't go wrong with that. Shoulders come up to horizontal, just shy actually, so not as good as it could be, but it's okay. I also don't care for the fact that his belly is always showing. That's not, I don't think that's intentional. I think it's supposed to look like it's tucked in, but the way they did the articulation, it's just a belly shirt, so that does bother me quite a bit, and I guess that would go in the aesthetics section. You do get your rotation, of course. The vest part is soft, but not that soft, so be careful with the paint rub. Single jointed elbow, which gives you about 90 degrees, and you get some rotation out of that. Wrists have a swivel and a hinge, and as you saw, we have ball pegs in here to pose him, but it does expose his midriff, which I don't believe is accurate. I could be wrong, you can let me know, but it's posable more than you might have expected, but you don't want to see his belly. I think that's kind of weird. For the hips, we have ball socket hips. They don't go all that far forward. They don't really go all that far back. Out to the side is not bad. It's a little bit better than 45, so that's okay. Thigh swivel is in there. You have a swivel hinge up here and a regular hinge down here. The bottom hinge is very hard to use sometimes. Like mine wouldn't go before, and just now it went without the other one moving. So apparently it just depends on what it feels like doing. But you get a little bit less than 90 out of that one, and then out of the top one, you get decent amount of range. It's a little better than 90 now, but it is kind of gappy and weird looking, but still not bad considering the sculpt, so that's okay, and you get a little rotation out of that. I think they should have just gone with a double hinge, a double standard hinge. The ankles rotate where they connect into the pants, so it's essentially a ball hinge, practically speaking. The foot goes pretty far back and not very far forward. You get your ankle out of that, ankle rocker out of that, and then you can rotate. That's why I said it's like a functional ball hinge. So it's not bad. It definitely is a little bit limited, but in terms of the cartoon series of Turtles figures, I think this one articulates just fine. All right, moving on. Maybe the easiest one to articulate out of the bunch. Let's see how it works. The neck is on a ball peg. The head is on at least a ball peg. It's probably a double though, so you can move his head and neck around however you want to. Shouldn't be a problem. Shoulders are a swivel hinge, up to horizontal, no issue there. You do get your full rotation. Careful grinding the white against the red. You don't want to get any transfer. Single jointed elbow, not my favorite thing because it does limit posability and the aesthetic, but it's not bad. You just don't want to rotate it without it being bent or it looks really weird. But you get a little bit better than 90 out of that, so it's not too bad. It's fine, I think. And it does provide for the aesthetic, so I guess that's all right. Wrist, swivel, and hinge is fine. There's at least some kind of joint in the torso, but it's not going to really do too much. It leans back a little bit and rotates. Leans to the side a little bit. Mostly just like gesture posing, I would say. For the hips, they go out to the side pretty darn far. That's way better than 45, so that's cool. They're a little bit loose. Going forward, definitely limited by the diaper. Not a ton of range there. Same thing going back. Thigh swivel is in there. Double jointed knee should work just fine on this guy because it's just a standard knee. Yeah, no problem there. No boot swivel up here, just the hinge down here, which does go back pretty far, goes forward pretty far, and you have a decent ankle rocker. So he's pretty fine. Limited shoulders, I guess. Yeah, there are a few limitations, but not too bad. And now for this guy, thick neck. He has no articulation above the neck, only down where the neck connects toward the clavicle, but it still poses pretty well given the spherical nature of his neck, so that's okay. Shoulders go up, not quite horizontal, pretty close though. You're going to get your full rotation out of that, that's fine. The vest is connected in a lot of places, so it doesn't really want to flex too much. It's glued on right here, which is why I'm guessing they ended up having glue or a fingerprint on his stomach. So that's a little bit of a bummer that it doesn't flex as much. Same type of elbows as on Bebop. So it's not the best design for functionality or look depending on what you're doing. If you're just going to do that, it looks really good. So it's totally up to you how you feel about that. It does limit range to only about 90 degrees. Wrists have a swivel and a hinge. His whole torso appears to be on a ball peg, and you can lean him around pretty well. He does have a belly under there, so it doesn't just have a gap that's ugly. You can see his flesh, and he leans around and poses pretty well. It's not like crazy good, but it's definitely better than I would have expected, so that's fine by me. For the hips, out to the side, just better than 45 degrees, and going forward, you're going to get basically nothing without really stressing that round diaper, so be aware of that. Going back, same thing. Thigh swivel is in there. Double jointed knee. I'm not guessing this is going to work well, but let's see. Okay, well, we got almost 90 out of the one joint. I can't get the other one to go. Very stuck joints. Not surprising for this line. Alright, that's the top one. I can't get them both to work, but it looks like if you use them both, it actually has pretty good range. I got on one side the top joint, and on one side the bottom joint, so yeah, it's a little tricky there, but again, hit it with a hairdryer or some warm water. Don't use boiling water, and you should have decent range out of those knees. No boot swivel. The feet do go pretty far back and not all that far forward, and it's a decent ankle rocker. So as usual, the articulation across this bunch, it's not the strong suit, but it's definitely not too bad. I'd say it's good enough given that this turtle line is all about the aesthetic and accessories. I'll give this set an overall rating for articulation of 6 out of 10. We've definitely seen much worse, but we've definitely seen much better. So, as usual, this set, like I said, it anchors on the aesthetic and the accessories, and it does deliver in those areas. So I'm going to give the set an overall rating of 8 out of 10. I can't just ignore the articulation limitations, so 8 out of 10, but if you don't care about articulation at all, then you could give it a higher rating for yourself or go get it and, now you know. But it does have limitations, have to be aware of those, even though I think they're justified in this line. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, you can give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.